Hey guys, it's Crazy Comic Lady, and today I'm working on a Diamond Art Club kit called A Beautiful Coloured Death, and it's by the artist Jojo's Art, and I love this guy's art so much. I've got quite a lot of it. So yeah, I'm going to work on that today. How's your week been? Have you guys been having a good week? Things have been a bit busy here, but I do have some exciting diamond painting related news. The company that I was working on in my last WIP and chat, the one with the diamond art, they actually reached out to me and said, because there'd been comments going on their Facebook page, and I'd mentioned that I did art and was an artist, and they actually reached out to me and said, please send us some samples of your artwork for potential licensing. So that was like really, really exciting. It did get me very, very anxious. So I went through all of my art to see what could possibly make a good diamond painting, because I'm not sure if mine would, because a lot of my art I do quite small. But yeah, I picked out a few samples, and I emailed them, or I messaged them over on Facebook Messenger, and then I never heard back. So I'm assuming that's either because they didn't like my art, or maybe they didn't see the message. But who knows? It was exciting when it lasted. I'm not gonna like follow them up or harass them or message them about it or anything. It's, you know, it's their choice. But that was kind of exciting for a little bit, of the possibility of possibly having a bit of income to finance my very expensive hobby. I keep saying a lot, but yeah, it did kind of bring back memories of a comic book company that I worked for in, when was it, 2018. I started working for this startup comic book company. I've been going to these life art groups, and I'd met this person there, and he was very into his art as well, and he was telling me about this comic book company that he was setting up. And I thought that was really interesting, and he was telling me all about it. So I ended up working for him for about 7 months. Yeah, that wasn't great, because I ended up losing complete creative control over some of the art that I'd done, and also a story that I'd written. So the company, I can show you a picture here. Ta-da! Right, so it's called Sunday Lunch Comics, and it's called Techno Freak. Yeah. So when I started working with them, they hadn't released this volume yet. So I came on board, and I went, one of the first things I did actually was I went through the sample comic version that they had. And I was like, there's a spelling mistake there. There's a spelling mistake over there. You didn't colour this person's eyes. And yeah, so I ended up like editing a lot of the first volume before it even hit the shelves. And then when that was going into production, I then got very involved with, I guess my job title would have been, I guess, sales, perhaps. So I ended up doing, we had the launch, when the official launch date, when the first volumes had gone into publication. So we'd like booked out this entire pub, and we'd got a live band, and we had a desk corner set up with all the other artists and everything that had worked on the project. So I was kind of in charge of sales and dealing with the money and everything on that, and that was certainly an interesting experience, because there was this, of course it was in a pub, so it was this one guy who didn't speak much English, and he would not leave me alone. And it was, I ended up having to like tell the guy I was working with, you know, this guy keeps kind of trying to touch my face. And anyway, I ended up getting the people who were also involved in the comic to kind of sit on either side of me at the sales desk, so this guy would leave me alone. So that was entertaining. So that was kind of exciting at the beginning, and I got given like a huge stash of these comics to sell. So I did a lot of kind of selling of comics, which I didn't take commission on, because I was just trying to help him start up this company. I didn't really think about it. I just kind of thought, well, by the time we get to actually selling a good number of these, and we're actually turning a profit and everything, then I'll get, you know, a cut of the sales or whatnot, is what I was assuming. So that went on, and we had to you know, the website got launched and there was an awful lot of packing up of the comics and putting them into individual sleeves and everything. So I did a lot of that, ready to be shipped out to the early sales, release, etc. And when I was working on doing that, I was at this guy's house. Anyway, his cat decided to kind of come out of nowhere and swipe me. And I ended up on antibiotics because my hand swelled up so badly. So that was entertaining. And then we got into full swing. We did a lot of the company meetings at, you know, pubs, etc. Yeah, the guy I was working for, he did kind of drink quite a lot. So I got to meet everyone involved and chat to them and everything and come up with ideas, and we were working on story ideas. And I came up with this idea for this short story, because one of the characters in this comic, Techno Freak, is actually Maurice, this little, the robot cat. And I thought, well, that's such a cool character, I can easily make like a whole mini-series out of this one character. So I ended up writing these like mini stories for them, and I did all the storyboarding, which I stupidly did in his sketchbook, not my own. And that was all great, and it was like, we're gonna put that in issue 2 as a short story right at the end of the comic, just to fill up some pages. So that was all good. And then time went on, and he decided, without getting my consent or anything, he went and he got this other artist to do the art for my short story. And I was he paid her £500 for this. And he was showing me he was like, oh yeah, these are the rough sketches. And I was like, those don't look like rough sketches. Those look like finished line art. And he was like, no, it will look better, because there was a lot of issues with her art in like proportions and just certain issues that it wasn't looking right, not to how I would have wanted to do it. So in the end, yeah, he ended up not being happy with her either. We ended up changing an awful lot of the art that she'd done. Just turn you a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. There you go. So yeah, we ended up changing an awful lot of the art that she'd done, or more specifically, I did. So I ended up like redoing a lot of her panels. And then the guy I was working for, he ended up also redoing a bunch of her panels when it came to like perspectives, because he wasn't happy with her art either. And in the end, he ended up, so he still paid her the £500, even though he ended up firing her. And he and I finished it ourselves. And it was really annoying, because like, you could have just asked me to do it, and I'd have done it for like a quarter of the price, and then I'd have had control over how I'd pictured it being in my head. And because I was having to change her art anyway. And some of the art, like, she didn't take our suggestions on board. She didn't change it. She didn't alter things that we pointed out. There's issues here. Can you change it? So anyway, it ended up being a huge nightmare. And so basically it all blew up so badly. I ended up completely losing control of the story I'd written, complete creative control out of all of it. I didn't end up getting credited for the bits of art that I had done for it. So all in all, it was a really bad experience, and it made me like really worried about losing control of stuff that I'd created after that. So I'm just trying to move my cover minder, and it's like not wanting to cooperate. The magnet's not very strong on it. There we go. So I lost creative control of that. I never got paid for my story. I mean, if he'd paid me for the use of the story that I'd created, I'd storyboarded, I'd done all the work for it, written it, etc., designed new characters for the spin-off series that we were going to do. If he had like compensated me for any of that, or any of the sales that I'd done, you know, I wouldn't have felt so, I guess, hurt about it all. Because I'm quite protective of my art at the best of times, and I just thought, you know, this guy's really nice, it'll be all right. You know, it's a fun comic thing to get involved in. I get to see more of the industry and all that. But yeah, I never got compensated for any of my time, effort, or story, or artwork that went into it. all the sales that I did, because I did quite a lot of sales. And it was very interesting when I was doing sales, hearing the feedback from people, because when the first volume got released, a lot of people, I was with, his name was John, the guy who owned the comic company. A lot of people would come up and they'd have criticisms over the fact that the comic was so overly sexual and the way it portrayed women. And I was like, okay, yeah, fine. It's not. I didn't think there was an issue with volume 1 at all with that, because I actually thought, yes, she's wearing a skimpy outfit, this main girl in it, but she's really pretty, and I quite like that cover artwork. But when volume 2 was being put in production, when I saw the art on volume 2, the cover art, I immediately went, oh dear, this, even for me, this is now getting too sexual for me to actually like feel comfortable having my story in this volume, because, you know, the covers on comics are what a lot of it is what sells the comics. People are drawn to what they see first off, and it was yeah. So we ended up getting into these discussions of possibly having an alternative cover. So we'd have like volume 2 would have 2 cover options. So I ended up designing that, and actually I really like the picture I did for it. So the cover art I did for it, I can actually grab my sketchbook and show you really quick. Right, let me just quickly find it. It's very big, so I'm not sure if it'll fit under fit under this, but let's quickly pull it out. So that was my rough doodle of, sorry, I might have to move you slightly off your stand. So that was like my idea, my rough doodle for the cover, right? And then, so I tweaked that and I sorted it out and I did it better. And we had, I'm not sure if this will fit on the screen. That was the cat, and I'm going to pick you up again to show you. Anyway, so we did end up doing 2 covers for it. So this was, I did kind of like the line art of it, and then he added in the background. So if I just pick you up again. So that was the cover, what was going to be the cover art on the second volume. So my cat with the Robo Kitty, and he did the background and everything. So, and he coloured it. So we did, that was fine. And that was going to go into production. But then, I don't know, I kept having so much trouble with this guy. And regarding the way that the art was going, that this other woman was doing of my story, it just left such a sour taste in my mouth. And we ended up having so many arguments about it that I walked away. I was like, fine, look, do whatever you want with the story. I'm out. I'm not doing this anymore. So I never actually purchased volume 2. They're up to volume 4 now. So you're more than welcome to go and hunt them down, Sunday Lunch Comics, and purchase a version of volume 2 if you want to see some of the art that I wasn't credited for. I don't think they ended up doing the second cover in the end, because that it hadn't quite gone into production by the time I walked away, and I just haven't kept on top of any of what was going on with it, because I didn't want the reminder, and I didn't want to see, I don't know, it's just the fact that I knew I could do it better. I'd had a vision for how I would have done it. I'd have done it for free, and if he wanted to pay me £500, he could have done, instead of getting this other artist who just, her art wasn't cutting it, and he agreed and everything. So yeah, it did leave a very sour taste in my mouth, and it got a bit awkward, because at one point during one of our meetings, when we were meeting up to discuss stuff, it was always done in pubs, and he actually turned around to me and he said, yeah, I love you. I thought you and I would end up being together. And it was so awkward, because this guy is the same age as my dad. So, and he had a girlfriend, and it was like, okay, this has become awkward. And from the moment I met him and started working on this comic book company, he was constantly putting down, I'd started to work on my fairy illustrated novel that I was doing, my Mushroom Forest Fairies. And he was always like putting it down and being like, oh, that will never sell, it's too long, you've got to break it up. And I was like, it's not supposed to be a comic, it's an illustrated book. You know, it's completely different, and you know, it's not like I'm trying to publish it or anything. I'm just doing it because it's something that was important to me. But he was constantly putting it down, putting it down, putting it down. So I actually gave up working on all of my own stuff for that completely over the year of 2018. I just stopped working on my own stuff because I hadn't asked for feedback or criticism or anything. It was just, you know, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm working on. So that put me off working on my own stuff for a bit, because I guess it kind of sticks. Like because he also was originally taught art at Stoke-on-Trent University, which is ironically somewhere where I'd actually applied to go back donkeys years ago when I was applying to universities, animation courses and such. But yeah, he was telling me stories about how he'd made these students cry and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, I'm not surprised, because you're really harsh with your criticism and you never find anything good to say about anything. So he was also teaching, when I knew him, he'd started teaching this adult education course as well. And the same thing's happening. He was telling me stories about these people who were coming up to him and asking him questions. And the way he was handling it, I was just kind of smiling and nodding, going, yeah, I can't remember. There was this one woman who was just wanting to know, how can I, you know, copy this picture of a bee and duplicate it and stuff. And he was just getting really nasty to her. And she ended up crying and not coming back to the course that she'd paid for. But yeah, it was like, you don't need to be so mean, especially when it's an adult education course. They're not going to be doing, unlikely at their ages in their 60s, to be doing anything sort of like, I guess, massively professional at that age anyway. They didn't need that level of harsh criticism. But anyway, eventually I got out of that and I walked away from it. So I haven't really kept up with what they're doing or anything, just because it's a bit of a sour note with what happened. So I am very careful now with potentially losing creative control over stuff that I have created, because the whole experience was not a fun one. It really wasn't. So anyway, I went off on a bit of a tangent about my I guess my art career. It was definitely a learning experience, I'll give you that. I need to get more colour in my tray. Also, have you noticed the new setup? On my previous WIP and chats, I watched them back and the sound quality is appalling. Like, I'm blowing your eardrums out for most of it, because my webcam and my microphone for my computer is just so obsolete now that I'm like, the quality on this is diabolical. Like, I'm cringing listening back to it. I don't know how any other people could possibly finish watching these hour-long WIP and chats when the volume and sound quality is so bad. So I did some research into cameras and microphones and decided, I get overwhelmed very, very quickly. I find it, when there's too much choice, I'm like, well, is this going to work? Am I going to waste money? How's this going to turn out? So I ended up like doing nothing. And then I kind of thought, hey, I got my first smartphone 1.5 years ago. Why don't I try just recording on that? And so I've done that for a couple videos that I've got lined up. I'm not sure when they'll go live. I've been using them for unboxings and things. So I've got like this really hilarious setup because I don't have like a recording arm. So I'm going to show you how I was recording my WIP and chats. So not my WIP and chats, my unboxing videos that will be going up. So I was doing them there on that table, and this is now my recording arm. It's their cardboard boxes, Diamond Art Club cardboard boxes that are braced underneath videotapes. So I balance my phone on the end and then sellotape them together. And then I have to stand on my tippy toes so that I can actually see the screen and what's being recorded. So anyway, that's temporarily my setup. So at the moment I'm recording you on my tablet, because that's actually got more memory space on it. the only downside is I'm struggling to transfer stuff onto my computer from my phone. Like I managed to get through half of the stuff on my phone, and I keep getting errors. Failed to import, device has been disconnected, and it's like, no, it's still connected, and I have to turn my phone off and on again, and then manually import stuff like one video at a time, which is painfully slow. So I'm kind of I don't know if you can hear that noise. It's a very noisy helicopter. So yeah, I've been using the iMovie thing that comes with iPhones and iPads to edit, which I prefer doing on my computer, to be honest. But since I'm really struggling to get any of the files from my computer and stuff, from my phone onto my computer, I'm like, well, I'll just have to edit on that on my phone now instead. So, but I think the quality is better. The audio is definitely better. So yeah, this is we shall go with that. Time for a drink, because my throat is getting all raspy and I don't want to choke down the phone. Okay, that's a bit better. Yeah, so this picture, I mentioned in my previous WIP and chat that it was a year ago in April that our doggo passed away, Bono. So I thought I want to do something to mark the kind of the passing of Bono, because it's still really raw even after a year, just because of how traumatic it was the way he went. So I thought, well, I don't have any other dog images in my stash, but I've got this one that's called, you know, Beautiful Death, which is a fox's rather than on dogs. But I thought this is the only thing I've got that could kind of really, I don't know, be appropriate, I guess. But it is a bit of a shame, because I'm loving working on this piece, but it's making me very sad because of the subject matter and death and everything. But I love how quickly this is working out, because you probably just saw my other project on the left when I showed you my really bad recording arm setup. A sibling rivalry from the one with the diamond art. So honestly, I was really struggling with that. It's the first time I've ever actually like packed up all my drills and gone, I need a break from it, because it is so confetti heavy. It's just taking so long, and it's really difficult, and you think you've got all the symbols and then you've missed one and you have to go back and find the tray, and yeah, it's working out really, really slowly, and I just needed a break from it. And this one is just like, oh, it's going so quickly, I love it. So I'm really enjoying working on this one. So I'm gonna move you forward a bit. There we go. Now, I was trying to hide, you're sitting on top of my lamp, in case you didn't realise, because, you know, why spend money on, you know, recording arms and stuff when you can use everyday objects around your house, like cardboard boxes and lamps? Yeah, any way that I can do stuff on the cheap is good. So, other news, what's happened? Oh, I did actually notice, talking of the one with the diamond art, the whole reason they actually reached out to me about the potential licensing thing was because there was a bit of a massive comment war going on, a comment argument about AI art. So they've actually started licensing artists who actually are using AI art. And they're just, I know people have very strong opinions for and against, but I am not a fan. I don't like the way in which, I think a lot of people don't quite understand the way in which AI art is being produced. Because there's this one person in the comments on that Facebook group where they were convinced that digital art and AI art were the exact same thing. And no, it's not. Digital art takes probably even just as much time as it takes to master traditional art. It's a process that, you know, artists spend decades acquiring the skills to be good on a certain medium. And AI art, especially in the way certain companies have gone about it, such as DeviantArt and Shutterstock, they basically opted every artist into their AI-generated program without asking the artist's consent. So basically everyone's artwork is being fed into a computer system so that the computer can basically steal and replicate the styles of artists who have spent decades accumulating these styles. So I don't want this to turn into a massive argument on my channel. Obviously, if you feel different, you're perfectly entitled to your opinion, and I respect that completely. But me personally, like, it's damaging. It's damaging to a lot of artists who have spent the years accumulating these skills. And it's, in my book, effectively, it's art theft. I mean, you feel free to disagree, completely feel free to disagree with me. Just from my own personal point of view, that's how I feel. And I don't like the way that DeviantArt and Shutterstock went about it. I know DeviantArt got a shed load of backlash about it, because, you know, I think there's ways that it should have gone, you know, these AI companies should have gone about it. Like, they should, if they're going to use other artist styles and incorporate them into AI art, then I feel these artists should be getting compensated for every time a part of their artwork style has been used, and that's not what's happening. Anyway, sorry, I've gone off on a bit of a tangent. I might have got my facts a bit wrong or right, or I've had some people after that comment war. I was trying very hard to stay out of the comment war that was going on Facebook, because I really hate conflict. I hate arguments. I hate upset. I hate causing upset. I hate being upset myself. So I was staying out of it and just reading through these comments. Because what had happened was this person had said, please don't license. The company had said, what would you like to see us license in the future? And this one person had commented saying, no more AI art, please. And then I commented back on that comment saying, I agree. I feel that it's making it more difficult for artists, and it's hurting artists and making them struggle more. And that's when, you know, the one with the diamond art reached out to me, because I'd mentioned that I do art as well. And they'd reached out to me then after that. But anyway, I stopped replying to messages after that. But there was just this explosion of just these arguments going on where people just really did not seem to understand that AI art and digital art are two very different things. And then this person who was getting involved in the argument, they reached out to me on Facebook Messenger. And they were really lovely. They were actually a writer who did an awful lot of work with artists for book cover designs and things. And they were like agreeing with me. And they were the one that told me about Shutterstock, that had done the same thing that DeviantArt did. So it was just, yeah, it's just amazing how many, I guess, misconceptions there are about it. But anyway, let's move on from this topic, because I know it's a sensitive issue for a lot of people, and I really don't want to upset anyone at all with my point of view. But you know, it's something I feel quite strongly about. So now that I know that the one with the diamond art are licensing artists who use AI art, immediately I was like, oh dear, I've ordered not an awful lot. I've ordered 6 kits from them. I really hope that they're not, because I didn't think to check the artist's description, like the artist bio, before purchasing those kits, because I just naturally assumed if they're licensing artists, then I think I may have just been slightly off screen there, but if they're licensing artists, I assume naturally that it would just be, you know, artist stuff rather than AI stuff. But it does say in the artist descriptions if they use AI art or what medium they use and stuff. So I went back and checked, and I found that one of the artists that I've bought 3 pieces from, they are actually an artist who studied in Germany, but they were actually involved in the development of AI art software, and that they'd been using it to enhance their art. So I'm not sure how much of their art is actually AI and how much of it is theirs themselves, because they are, you know, they graduated from an art school. So I'm hoping that, you know, it's not completely AI generated, the pieces that I bought, but they're really pretty, and it is something that's important to me. So I am now being very, very cautious to carefully read the artist bios before I purchase stuff in the future. So anyway, let's move on. I can tell you about some fun, exciting medical updates. So I went in for I've got my date through for my surgery on my mole. So that's going to be going on the 28th of next month, May. So yeah, they're going to take it off and it's going to be done. Fortunately, it's not even local. I'm going to have to travel for it, which is a pain. But honestly, because I've got so many other health issues, I am very, very worried about surgeries, because I've had lots of surgeries and procedures done in the past, and I do not heal from surgeries like normal people do because of my Ehlers-Danlos and my complex regional pain syndrome. Like, I had a surgery done when I was 10 that to this day has never healed. 25 years later, the surgery is still never healed, and it's never going to. So I'm so nervous about it that I've actually booked in a private specialist consultation to get a second opinion to see if it's actually really necessary or not to have this mole off, or if the NHS are just overreacting about it. So I'd rather spend £240 and be out of pocket £240 than go ahead with a procedure that might not necessarily have definitely been necessary. So I just want to get a second opinion on it, just to put my own mind at rest. So I did go up to the hospital the other day to get my medical photographs taken of my moles. So that was very interesting, because I was speaking to the photographer lady, and she was really nice, and I asked her how she got into doing medical photography, and she said that when she'd graduated from her photography degree, she just couldn't get work anywhere. There were just no jobs going, and she'd had an uncle that had done medical photography, so she thought she'd just give that a go, and that's where she'd been ever since. So that was interesting, and she said that she has seen some quite had to take photographs of some quite horrific things up on the wards, but yeah, she showed me the photographs after she'd taken them. And she has like this special lens where they actually push the camera lens right up against your skin, so it's really cold, and then they get this like super in detailed depth image of your moles. And anyway, she showed it to me, and I was like, wow, that on the close-up, that looks actually super horrific, because of course it's on my back, so I can't see it. All I can do is go by how it feels. But actually seeing it in one of those very high definition photos, I was like, wow, okay, yeah, that's looking pretty bad. I have a feeling that the specialist I'm paying to see, that's on the 4th of May, is probably going to say the same thing as the NHS doctor, but we shall see. I will keep you updated. She's going to email me all the photographs over, hopefully at the end of the week, and then I can take them to my specialist, my private specialist, to have a look at, along with the doctor's note that he wrote that I saw up at the NHS hospital. So we shall see how that goes. In other medical news, my mum is not doing well again. She gets frequent urine infections because she has issues with her kidneys. So I had to ring up the doctors about that, and they were prescribing some antibiotics, and the prescription just didn't go through. And the exact same thing happened to me a few weeks ago, where I've spoken to the doctor on the phone. They said they put the prescription through, and then it just doesn't go through. So I rang back the following day, and I said, can you, this hasn't gone through. Can you do something about it? So they did on the second day. They finally got her onto the antibiotics, but Mum was like, oh, it doesn't matter, don't need them. And it's like, you remember what happened last time we thought you didn't need them? You ended up in hospital and nearly died. We commonly refer to 2015 to 2016, we refer to as the year of hell, because it was just one thing after the other. So it started actually with my dog Rolly passed away in the summer of 2015, just before I was going to Toronto to get specialist medical treatment in Toronto for my Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So my dog passed away just before we were going to go, and then literally a few days before we were going to go, my aunt's husband passed away on a cruise. They didn't have the equipment to help him. He came over, he couldn't breathe, and he ended up dying on the cruise ship. And of course, we'd already got our tickets and everything booked for this trip, so we couldn't back out. So I missed that funeral. And then I came back from my trip to to Canada, it was great. It was a clinic, I can't remember the name of it now. Is it Bioflex, or Biotech? They deal in laser light therapy treatment, which is a way of getting your body to heal itself with these intense laser light therapy treatments. So that actually helped an awful lot, and I actually it's not widely available in the UK. You can get it, there's certain specialists, private specialists that will do it, but I wanted to meet the actual guy who'd created, Fred Kahn. He created the laser light technology after he'd damaged his shoulder as an injury. He'd realised that laser light therapy has been used in vets practices for ages, but not actually in the medical world. So yeah, I wanted to meet him. He was in his 90s when I met him, and he was a really good doctor. I liked him. I doubt he's still alive now. So yeah, that was really good. That was really helpful, and people at my EDS support group are very, very interested in it. So I might take because I had to buy a home unit, and that was a lot of expensive. That was quite a few £1,000s just for the home unit for this medical treatment thing. But the people at my EDS support group were very interested, so I'm going to take it next time we have a support group meeting. And then if people want demonstrations and want me to hook them up to it, I'm happy to do that. But it is something where you have to have it takes 6 months to have effective treatment from laser light therapy, because it takes that amount of time for your body to start healing itself and producing more collagen. So where was I going with that? Anyway, yeah, so the year of hell, I was recovering from that, and it was always my intention to go back and get more treatment. However, we were thinking about booking the appointment, and then my grandmother went horrifically downhill very quickly. She'd been struggling for a few years with a sarcoma, which is a bone cancer. So they thought that she was going to lose her arm. Unfortunately, they managed to get the bone cancer out without taking her arm off, but it was too late. It had already spread, and she refused to have any further treatment just because the first round of it was so difficult. So 2016, she went downhill very quickly. My father was getting very worried on one day because he couldn't get through to her on the phone, and that was very, very unusual. So he called the neighbour and said, can you go check on my mum? And she'd gone around and found my grandmother laying on the floor in the hallway. She'd been there all night because she'd collapsed, and there was blood everywhere because, yeah. Oh, that was the first time when I'm getting confused with the time scale of it, but yeah, when her abscess on her arm first ruptured, ironically, our dog knew, and we didn't realise. This was before Rolly had died, before she was diagnosed with the bone cancer. He was constantly sniffing her arm, and we didn't think about it. We just didn't put two and two together because we didn't know there was an issue, and she hadn't told us she had this massive lump on her arm. She was keeping it very quiet, but my dog knew. And in hindsight, if we had kind of thought about it more, of why is my dog not leaving my grandmother alone, then perhaps in hindsight we could have got her in earlier, before it had spread, because it spread into her lungs. So she collapsed on the floor. The neighbour found her, rang the ambulance. She went into hospital, and then it was we're going to have to get her in a nursing home because she now can't walk or move or do anything. So we did that. We went around all the all the nursing homes and everything who specialise in taking care of people. My dad, I think, was in denial because he was absolutely convinced that she'd be in there just to rehabilitate and then be back on her feet. And I think everyone else in the family knew she's not going to come out. She's not going to come out. And it was 3 or 4 weeks, and then she passed. The saddest thing about that was a few days before she died, she had this incompetent nurse who was emptying her catheter bag, and he spilt the entire bag on her. So can you imagine, just, you can't move, you're trapped in bed, you're dying, and then someone drops a bag of pee all over you. It's that will forever stay with me. And the day she actually died, I just had this feeling like, Dad, we need to drive up and go and see Grandma. And he was like, yeah, I'm just going to get the grass mowed first. I was like, okay, I'll have a bath and then we'll head off. But, you know, before I'd even got out of the bath and before he'd finished mowing the lawn, we got the phone call that she'd passed away. And then not long after she passed away, my other aunt's husband also had cancer. And that was so sad because that could have been avoided as well. But when he went to the dentist had found this lump in his mouth and said, you need to get this checked out. This could be, you know, throat cancer or whatever it was. I can't remember now. But because he's deaf, he didn't hear the dentist say that. And that was, yeah, he ended up he died in his own assisted living flat that he was in not long after my grandmother. And then not long after that, my mother had this urine infection that got so bad that we ended up rushing her into hospital as an emergency. And it turned out that the kidney infection had turned into sepsis. So that was really touch and go. And she was not with it at all, because I tell her the story of I was going up there every day to see her, because it was just up the road anyway, and bring her stuff and books and whatnot. And she was just so not with it because she was just so ill, that she was having this massive fight with the doctor, who was, he's a lovely doctor, this man, where she was just like, let me go home, I want to go home, I'm discharging myself, I'm going. And I sat down next to her and I held her hand and I said, Mum, you can't go, you've got to listen to the doctor, because he's saying, you know, if she goes home she's going to die. She's got really severe sepsis here. And he was really lovely, and he was standing next to us and convincing her that no, you've really got to stay in hospital, you've got to, you know, we've got to look after you. And she kind of broke down in tears and everything, and I hugged her and I was like, it's okay, you'll be out soon. So we brought her out of hospital after the sepsis cleared up. And then 3 weeks later, she was back in hospital again. She was just having a follow-up from the sepsis infection, and they took one listen to her heart and rushed her into the emergency care because the sepsis had damaged her heart and she was in heart failure. And they hadn't put her in that night, she would have died overnight, because they were having to keep her awake all night, because every time she started going to sleep, her heart rate was dropping down to nothing. They had to keep coming in and waking her up, and they got her in for an emergency heart surgery and gave her a pacemaker. And they did that under like a local anaesthetic, so she was awake and she could hear everything going on, and they had this big screen up. And she heard the doctor say, oh God, it's not going to reach. Oh, this is not good. And heard the specialist panicking. And it turned out afterwards that he told her that you have an abnormal heart. You actually have an extra, an extra chamber. That was it. You have an extra chamber in your heart. And in my 25 years of doing heart surgeries, this is only the 4th time I have ever seen this in 25 years. So that was interesting, because the wires they had for the pacemaker wasn't going to reach around the heart, because the heart was an abnormal size because of this extra chamber in it. So that was quite difficult. And then immediately after that, we had my great aunt who had dementia. She passed away, and then I'd just gotten my dog Cassie, and we ended up taking Cassie to the funeral because she was such a young puppy. We couldn't leave her, and that was quite hilarious actually at the wake, because she was so little and everyone loved seeing the tiny little puppy, and she actually jumped up and she stole a bunch of cakes off the tray of food and whatnot at the wake place. But yeah, she just jumped up there and I think it was sandwiches actually. She stole some sandwiches and possibly a cake. It's just like, you just got to keep your eye on them when they're puppies, because they get into everything. And then immediately after we'd lost my great aunt, my mum was back in hospital again, this time for her gallbladder, and the NHS, it was just before Christmas, the NHS just wasn't going to deal with it. It's like, no, we're not going to deal with this until after Christmas. So she's on the sofa, she physically can't move. And it's like, well, we can't wait till after Christmas when you can't eat, you can't move. So we ended up paying privately to get her gallbladder out. And then we lost another two. We lost two more people. One was a very old family friend that we'd known for decades, my whole life, passed away, and then an acquaintance that I knew really well passed away as well. And it was just like, that year, 2016, ended 2015 to 2016 to the beginning of 2017 was just, it was overload. I think I lost contact with an awful lot of my old, like the old art people that I used to like contact and talk to quite a lot, because that year was just so hectic. And I think it affected me so badly, losing so many people in such a short amount of time, that it was just, okay, we're going to another funeral, okay, we're going to another funeral, and it's another funeral. And then we did also, I think it was 2017, we also lost another family member. That was my great uncle. Passed away as well, and that was up in Yorkshire, and I was just like, I can't do another funeral. So Dad went up to that one by himself, that funeral, and I got a text from my uncle saying, you know, he's left, he's on his way, and then it wasn't too long before the police came and knocked on our door, and we were like, what, you know, my mum's into panic mode of, oh my God, what's happened? Why are the police at our door? So it turned out that the house next to us had been burgled. So what they'd done was these burglars had come in through our side gate, hopped the fence and broken into the next door's house. And they were just asking if we'd seen anything. But it was like, and then I actually have another funny police story. I'm not sure if I told this one already, but during lockdown, I'm pretty sure I told this story already, but I'm just going to say it again. We live very close to a mental health hospital, and very frequently you'll get people who escape from the mental health hospital. So you'll very frequently get police dogs going up and down our road, and helicopters searching in the middle of the night. So this was late afternoon, and, you know, I'm smoking a cigarette out the window, as you do. Bad habit, I know, it's terrible. Anyway, I see this policeman and his dog in my back garden, and I'm like, what? Why is there a police dog in my back and a policeman in my back garden? So my dad goes out to try and find out what's going on, and the policeman turns around and says, you've got to go back inside, it's not safe in here. So it was just hilarious. We're being told we can't even be in our own back garden. So what had happened was this guy had escaped from the mental hospital. He'd gone down our side passage, just like the burglar had done, hopped the fence into the neighbour's garden, hopped the fence over to the garden behind us, gone up an apple tree and got stuck, and that's where the police then eventually caught up with him, and the police dog barked at him and he fell out of the tree, and it was caught on camera. I'm fairly certain I might have shared this story, but it's still a hilarious story. So anyway, yeah, that was, 2015, 16, 17 were very difficult years, and it made me sort of very paranoid about people dying, just because we lost so many so close together, and now it's like the vast majority of my family are now gone. Like this, the Christmas cards and birthday cards are like, you hardly get any now, because it's like everyone's. I think it's just something, as a kid you don't really realise that these people aren't going to be in your life, and then you really miss them when they're gone, and wish you'd asked all these stories that you just don't think about asking when you're little. So yeah, it's just most of the sad. Anyway, moving on. I have more puppy stories to share with you. So I had my partner Aidan around the other day when I was just doing dinner, and said, hey, do you want to come and pop in? He'd just been to see his dad in hospital, because his dad, he had an ulcer on his foot, and they were hoping that perhaps it wouldn't result in him losing his foot. As it was, he has had to have his toe amputated. So now he's got no toes, no big toes on both of his feet, toeless. I need another colour. Let me just find what colour I need now. Let's go with V. I can do V's. Yeah, I said, do you want to come around for dinner when you come back? And he said, yeah, that'd be good. So he brought the dog, and, you know, I fed the puppy. He's not really a puppy, but I fed the puppy a tiniest bit of rice. It didn't have any flavouring on it whatsoever. And then about 10 minutes later, I saw him wrenching. I was like, he's going to throw up. He's going to throw up. I went and I quickly grabbed the kitchen roll, and I managed to get it under him just in time to catch the vomit. So I dealt with that, and I threw it away, and then he's going to vomit again. So this time I grabbed the kitchen roll again, and this time I caught it in my hand because I was that close to not catching it. It's like, I don't want to have to deal with vomit on the carpet. I'd rather it went on my hand than on the carpet. So, but yeah, the tiniest bit of rice, and he chundered it twice. But anyway, we had just had the carpet cleaners round, and that's always a hilarious story, because he always says, our carpet cleaner, yep, I remember you. I broke your door handle. I was like, yes, you did. Because in 2021, that was a horrific year for us with everything going on. We'd had these cowboy builders in to repair our patio that was really, really badly damaged. And they did a horrifically awful job. Didn't finish the work, ended up drawing it out. They got $8,000 from us, and in the end we were like, just don't come back, leave it, because it was appalling. Anyway, when they had just started, we also had a flood through the kitchen ceiling on the exact same day that they started, which was completely unrelated. I was like, oh God. So then we had to go and got a plumber, and they had to cut through a hole in the kitchen roof, and found that the overflow pipe on the upstairs toilet had just come disconnected, so all the water was just flowing through the kitchen ceiling. And then we had the carpet cleaners in a few days after that, and I kept telling him, I was like, oh, don't, because he was like, does this open? I was like, yes, but don't, it opens backwards, because we have a bizarre lock on our door, which it's completely unintuitive because the lock is backwards. I was like, let me do it, I'll open the door for you. And he didn't, and he forced it, and he snapped the handle right off our sliding door in our sitting room. And that was such an expensive repair, because I had to get out an emergency locksmith because we couldn't do anything with the door at this point. And it was so easy. After I watched this guy fix the door handle, I was like, I could have done that for just without having to spend that amount of money. It was like £180, and it looks so easy. After I saw him do it, I was like, well, next time I can actually do that myself and not actually have to get someone in to do it, because that was actually really easy. So anyway, the carpet cleaner, every single time he comes around now, he was like, yep, I remember I broke your door handle. He brings it up every single time. I was like, yes, you did. It's all right. They compensated us. We've sent them the bill, and they sent us a check for it. It was fine. But I just thought that was funny every time that he remembers our broken door handle. Right, have I got anything else to... Oh, I do have some more... Oh, I have more funny dog stories, but I think they might have to wait for another day because we're nearly hitting the 1 hour mark. Oh, it's all right. I can squish them in. I can squish in dog stories. So it was another drink very quickly. It was Sam B. Awesome had mentioned in a comment that she's been dog sitting her parents' dogs. And that reminded me of when we'd just gotten our puppy last year, we'd also agreed to babysit Aiden's sister's dogs, my partner's sister's dogs. She has a cockapoo who's about the same age as my dog Cassie, about 6, and a 9-month-old Chihuahua. So, of course, we've got my girl Cassie, who's 6, who's the Rottweiler collie, and we've got Obi, who's like 3 months and a lunatic. So Cassie and Coco, the cockapoo, didn't really like each other. There was a lot of female dominance thing going on, especially if food was involved. And the Chihuahua hated Obi, the lurcher. So it was a very entertaining 2 weeks. Because eventually we managed to get them more or less settled and together. But it was just funny, like the Chihuahua just loved my dog, I guess because she was a girl and she's really calm, but she was just terrified. He was terrified of the... Oh, I found some more Ys. Sorry, got distracted. So yeah, anyway, it took a bit of time, but by the end of the 2 weeks we got there. Am I even in frame? Yeah, just. Let's turn you a bit. So that was, yeah, an entertaining few weeks, especially when the cockapoo escaped. So my partner had opened the door just to put out the recycling, and it darted for the open door, and off it went like a rocket, right down the road. Couldn't catch it. He had to get in the van and chase it down the road to try and get close to it. And it went into like the one driveway it shouldn't do, where the an evil dog lives that bites and kills things. Like I've been in the hospital from that dog, and it's also caused other people to need stitches. It's not a good dog to, it's like the wrong possible house for you to want to try and get into, because their garden also isn't secure as well. So it was like, no, cockapoo, don't pick that house, pick any house but that house to run into. Anyway, eventually after like 40 minutes, my partner eventually caught this bloody runaway cockapoo. But yeah, we got there. We had to get a harness for the Chihuahua because he would put up such a fight. He was so terrified of absolutely everything, including people, that he would put up such a fight that his collar was just slipping off his neck because he was so tiny. So I bought him this little harness thing just so that we could have him secure because, you know, we've got... So I ended up walking the Chihuahua and my Rottweiler collie, and my partner ended up with the cockapoo and the puppy because that was the best way to walk them. Yeah, and in the end it ended up becoming my dog Cassie and the dog Coco. They just tended to scent mark on each other's scent. So Cassie would scent mark, then Coco would scent mark, then Cassie would go back and scent mark the same bit and over Coco's scent mark, and it was kind of a passive aggressive who's dominant here rather than quite as in your face as they were at the beginning. So we got there, we got the routine going in the end, and I do have one final dog story for us to end on, which is we took them up the park the other day and they spotted a squirrel, and the stupid squirrel, instead of trying to run towards the tree it came from, which was safe, it tried to dart across the field to the other tree. The dogs were catching. They were literally this far away from its tail. He was like, the puppy was gaining on it so quickly, and they were sort of coming in at a pincer attack and kind of sandwiching it. Yeah, and just before the puppy caught the squirrel put an emergency stop. It stopped dead. The dogs both overshot it, and by the time the dogs had turned around, the squirrel had darted back to the tree, the original tree, and got itself to safety. But I was like, smart squirrel. If that squirrel hadn't stopped when it did, it would have been eaten. I was like, wow, smart squirrel. That was probably panic more than actual being smart on the squirrel's part. I think it probably went, there's no way I'm going to reach it, reverse. I can't reach that tree, quick, reverse. It was just hilarious just watching the dogs sail past it, try and put on their brakes and turn, but they just weren't quick enough to turn and then regain the ground. But anyway, that seems like a very good place to end my whip and chat. So what shall we have for our emoji today? If you made it to the end of the video, I'm not sure. How about something with a flower? Have we got flower emojis? Let's do a flower emoji because there's this big flower here in this fox's head. So we'll do that. And so yeah, thanks everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope the quality is better. I think we're on to a good thing now with quality, fingers crossed. So thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys all soon. Bye. Well, my bye went really funny there. Let's try that again. Bye. My voice went all croaky for a second. Okay, really going this time. Bye.